Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for your company. Now, let's move on to Uganda's anticipatory actions for climate change. Uganda is prone to a wide range of variety of calamities in different regions of the country. The majority of the known disasters are weather and climate related. As science has advanced, it has become possible to predict these events, giving disaster managers a window or opportunity to attack in response to a forecast and thereby lessen or prevent the potential impact of expected disasters. Stakeholders are working to identify provocative measures that can prevent these disasters, but with the government's commitment to disaster management is still unwavering. Let's have a look. Disaster and emergency management relies heavily on early warning and early action initiatives. Prediction, community involvement, response, and accompanying the communities on their journey throughout the process, first steps of the post-disaster phase. As far as budget allocations go, the Honorable Sarah Opendi has urged the government to give disaster management priority. This is because resources are scarce and the Ministry of Finance incurs additional costs when it distributes urgent financial donations to disaster-affected communities.
But we allocate funds also based on sometimes prioritization, because the executive comes up with what it feels are priorities, but also the resource envelope is limited. And as a result of that, we find that most of issues around climate change are not prioritized. And yet we all know that our economy is highly dependent on our natural resources.
As developing partners, the objective of the Uganda Red Cross is to increase information capacity and educate the population at large, because with these resources, catastrophe management, agricultural practices, increasing livelihoods, and more will be simple to stop.
All this happens at the community, not in Serena, not in our offices. It happens in the community. So to what extent are you preparing the communities? To what extent are you making these communities understand the information and they own it? But also, how do you build on their local information? They know they are not oblivious of some of these situations. So how do you reinforce the local knowledge, the traditional knowledge? So for me, that is the key game changer. And for us as Red Cross, that's where we put most of our emphasis. The beauty with our action, put it in a context, is that when you invest in our action and the disaster doesn't happen, you have still invested in building the capacity of that community, of the individuals. So you can't take it away. But when you wait to respond, it is more expensive. I was talking to my colleague here from World Food Program, maybe you can expand on this. The amount of money they have spent in Karamoja during this current emergency of giving food relief, if they had invested that in early action, maybe they would have spent a quarter of that money.
Government will support the anticipatory action plan according to the Ministry of Relief and Disaster Preparedness. This is because relying on the contingent budget funds is unrealistic.
This very approval of this plan by Parliament and have it in the budget. Because if you continue depending on the contingency budget funds, it won't be possible, because now other issues are coming in and also other priorities coming very fast. So you see issues of disasters go down, and yet it's really affecting the economics and also the livelihoods of the people of Uganda. So we are trying our best to make sure that this plan comes on board.
The Uganda National Meteorology Association discussed its progress in closing the information gap and provide us with a projection for the coming few months.
Media, like district, local radio stations. Like recently, we were in southwestern Uganda and Western Nile region, where we had teams from UNIMA really reaching out to these local radio stations. For example, we were in Kabale, Mbarara, Hoima, and Fort Potro for the team in Western Uganda. We're going to have more rainfall within the southwestern Uganda, and a general reduction in rainfall within the central and really very lowest rainfall within the northern parts of the country. That is Western Nile Acholi and the Karamoja region expect to be a bit drier, and as compared to the central, which will also be a bit dry, but for western Uganda we expect to have some rains.
Government shouldn't be placed in charge of anticipatory action alone. Developing partners and local communities should also participate. Ronah, Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today. Now, World Bank has agreed to extend $638 million in funding towards scaling the electricity connections in Uganda. Okasai Opolot, the State Minister of Energy, claims that this financing will help advance the free connections policy. Let's have a look.
In 2018, government launched a free electricity connection policy where customers were required to pay only $20,000 for inspection, and government caters for the remaining connection fees in a move aimed at increasing the number of power connections around the country. However, the free connection policy was first suspended in 2020 after the World Bank, which was the biggest funder, withdrew, citing corruption and failure to implement the project as had been agreed.
The economy is hard. Look at the soldiers.
The State Minister for Energy, Okasai Opolot, therefore has assured Ugandans that the project is back and that it's going to be effective next year.
And I would wish to assure the country we are going to, a World Bank has actually provided us funding, $638 million, which is going to be, that project is going to be effective next year, and that project will enable us to actually have those who are unable to connect to get connected to power.
People from the rural areas have long maintained that many small businesses cannot pay the existing connection price of $730,000 levied by power distributor Umeme.
Where we are, the poles are there, but there are not power in the houses. What is the problem? It's the high charge. So now government has put a lot of money there, but people are not able to connect the power.
Not only here, but everywhere.
Okasai always advises that in order to obtain electricity, a house must be worthy of receiving it, adding that bringing electricity to a grass-thatched house is quite risky. Speaking to the media today, therefore, he disclosed that such houses will also be connected thanks to an innovation.
I know there are so many households that are not in permanent structures. Some of them are in grass households. We shall reach even those people in grass-thatched huts through two ways. One, rooftop solar panels. They can supply electricity to whatever type of structure you have, whether you are in a grass-thatched hut or you are in a mabati house.
In 2017, power distributor company Umeme announced they had suspended implementation of the free connection project after running into areas that had not been paid by government for the connections they had so far made. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
In the same light, there is a story about load shedding in Kabale municipality. Now, following the ongoing power outages in the major Kabale districts, residents have expressed displeasure with the government and the Umeme farm after suffering significant fuel cost losses and businesses closures as a result of load shedding. The district has been struggling with unreliable energy for the previous 3 weeks with around 96 hours of total blackout, forcing residents and business people to choose gasoline as a source of power, while a sizable portion who relied solely on electricity were left with no other choice. Let's have the story.
The owner of Brickops International Studios, a videography, photography and other computer service studio in Kabale district, claims that because of load shedding in the area, they have experienced losses and that going without power for a long period of time has a significant impact on their cost of living. He goes on to claim that this year's business performance was subpar as a result of the district's erratic power supply.
Much of the work we do entirely depends on electricity. So finding ourselves not having a full day working, even if it is partly doing that work, it is very, very unfortunate. So I would like to put my disappointment with the Umeme. I think they need, I don't know how these people have been operating. I would personally say it could be ranked as one of the worst performing companies in Uganda today. Every other time, every day, we don't have electricity. And really, these people need to understand that the cost of living entirely for us depends on electricity because that's the source of income.
Masiko continues by pleading with the district officials and the government as a whole to think about looking into the load shedding problems in the area and stating that the locals are really uncomfortable with these circumstances.
The government of Uganda to really think about the operation of this company because you cannot have load shedding every day. It's a very big disappointment. I know even there are very many of our colleagues who are equally disappointed, although they may not be speaking right now. But I want to assure you that as Kabale, we are really very, very uncomfortable with the operations of this Umeme business.
The operations manager of Sino Mineral and Iron Ore Plant in Buhura Sub-County, Kabale District, Brian Munanura, says that the company has lost equipment worth millions because of unstable power supply, adding that there has been a sharp decline in the number of tons produced per hour amidst the use of a lot of money on purchasing fuel to run the machine.
Entirely, like this factory, we use a lot of power, and Kabale region, Sigas region, and Kawa in particular, I think we have a problem of power. First of all, the power is not enough, and when it's enough, it's on and off. We work 30 minutes, power goes off. When we put on a generator, when we switch on a generator, 10 minutes, then power is back. We again switch off the generator. After switching off the generator immediately, power is back. So we've lost some equipment because of unstable instability in voltage and also the capacity.
The Great Kabale Power District's blackouts and unstable electricity are caused by a faulty transformer at the Kabale Power Station, according to the head of communications at Umeme Company's national offices, Peter Kawuju. He also adds that a new transformer has been added to replace the faulty one.
The transformer faulted, and so we are bringing a new one. The team is actually already, we sent the first team that came this morning. They arrived at 5:30, and the transformer is also on its way, the new one. Because that first team was to establish what the problem was, which they have seen, and they recommended a new transformer, so which is already on the way to Kabale. So we had to establish what the problem was, and we discovered the transformer was actually faulty, and it would not perform to the expectation. And that's why the recommendation was made that we bring a new one, which is already on its way. Otherwise, there are times also when there are some isolated incidences along the network here and there. But once they are reported, we move and fix. So this because, even last week before the transformer faulted, we had challenges. We had people complaining a lot.
Umeme Limited is the largest electricity distributor in Uganda, distributing about 97% of all electricity used in the country. Nobat, Martha Nimsima, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Thank you, Nobat and Martha Nimsima, for that report. Now, moving on to Uganda's transition to electric cars. Through its state-owned vehicle company, Chira Motors Corporation, and the government of Uganda has invested more than $50 million on electric transportation. According to Uganda's Minister of Research and Technology, Dr. Monica Musenero, there is a need to switch to electric vehicles because of the country's rising fuel prices.
Dr. Monica Musenero says they are concentrating on producing more vehicles to save the country from environmental pollution and the growing fuel prices. Ugandans are recommended to switch to indigenous technology to build e-mobility vehicles as the cost of production is decreasing.
Developing domestic technology to produce e-mobility vehicles, the buses, private cars, motorcycles, and light trains we are going to work developing, and we shall incrementally replace. There's a lot of demand. The cost of production goes down. And that is what we expect with the e-mobility solutions. The vehicles, they are going to become cheaper. So that is why our strategy in Uganda, the beginning is not to make vehicles for individuals, because at the current rate, the production is still very high cost. So we are focusing on producing vehicles which help people move without you needing to own one. And the cost of you moving on a bus is affordable. It's much cheaper than you driving your private car. So we are trying to make means of transport which is clean, available, affordable, so that you can save that extra money and do some investment, so that when the cars, personal cars, are finally affordable, you are able to buy one.
Okasaya Pilot, the state's Minister for Energy, urges that in order to boost e-mobility, the supply of electricity needs to be increased as well as tracked to the private sector.
E-mobility is not taking us by surprise. We have actually been planning what we need to do in transition. E-mobility is bringing a few things into play. One, we must have electricity energy supply. That one is a starting point. As we have been thinking about other fuels, similarly, the fuel for e-mobility is electricity. We need to increase our generation of electricity to enable us provide that energy which the e-mobility is now calling for, and that is electricity supply.
Energy Minister advised the government to ensure that there is good policy on e-mobility and establishment of the law favorable for both entities.
We have got to create new laws to enable us regulate the new businesses that are going to accrue. There are indications, yes, we must have petrol stations within the radius of 50 kilometers to meet the increasing demand. We are piloting the technologies, we are working with our partners. For example, GI said we have actually established charging stations for motorcycles along the road to Masaka, Kampala-Masaka Road. This should be followed with even charging stations for Kayola, which the minister was talking about. How can we position those charging stations to enable us move forward with e-mobility?
In a transition to electric vehicles, the government will save the environment from pollution, according to Jacob Hornback, the Chief Executive Officer of Border Work.
Everybody knows burning fuel in border borders pollutes our air, emits a lot of carbon dioxide. It costs the owner of the motorcycle most of his income fueling his bike. So changing from petrol to electric helps government with import substitution, helps us using more domestically produced electricity, helps us cleaning our air, makes public transport cheap, and allows the border guy to earn more money.
Furthermore, Andrew Bakashaba, Personal Assistant Resident Director at the International University of East Africa, states that they are experimenting with new technology to promote e-mobility, with 60% of the items manufactured locally in Uganda to reduce on production cost of e-mobility.
About 60% is can be sourced locally here. The lights, the mirrors, the tires, the frame is made here. But then there is this technology which we cannot make here, and about 40% of that we assemble it.
Andrew Barije, Samuel Chirimunde, Smart 24 Business Today.
Business Today will now end here, but as always, we are always appreciative of your company. If you missed this, there is a link on YouTube at Smart 24 TV and more updates on Twitter, Facebook, and the like on the same handles. My name is Ronah Nahabwe with Winnie and Nakawuki on the sign language. Until next time, have a good night.
Smart 24, driving business.